So I spent my first vasa there. You know, orang putih, they like to read a lot. So the library is stock full of books. So I studied the suttas there. And when I studied the suttas, I found that a lot of contradiction between Theravada and Mahayana teachings. Because I had spent 9 years in Mahayana, I was very familiar with the Mahayana teachings. So when I read the Theravada suttas, the discourses of the Buddha, I found a lot of contradictions. Then when I started thinking, then I realized, if one sees white, one sees black, both cannot be correct. Yeah? So you have to think which one is correct. Then I realized that even in Mahayana sutras, there are contradictions. So I was happy to change to Theravada. So now I've been in Theravada for 20 years. And during this time when I was in Theravada, I studied a lot now. Being one of those monks who have studied through university, I had the capability of studying all the books. So having studied all the books, I realized that even in Theravada, there are contradictions. There are wrong teachings. And these wrong teachings comes about because of later books. So unless you make an exhaustive study, a lot of things you take for granted to be the Buddha's teachings may not be. For example, probably all of you believe that the Buddha was a son of a king. Is that true? I think most people have been told that the Buddha was a prince and that his father was the king and he was a brave young man. And later he married, and then he saw 4 sights, and that made him want to renounce. And then in the middle of the night, he stole away from his wife, took a last peep at the wife and the son, and he stole away in the middle of the night. Sounds very romantic, but unfortunately, a lot of it is not true. So a lot of, what is the truth actually? The Buddha belonged to the warrior caste, the blue blood. Like in Malaysia we have Tunkus and Rajas. But are all Tunkus and Rajas the son of a king? No. Yeah. When I was working, there was a Raja who was a peon, office boy. A very poor Raja. He was called Raja because he belonged to that royal family. So in the same way, our Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, belonged to the warrior clan. But his father was not the king. In the Majjhima Nikaya, it is stated that the Buddha was a citizen of Kosala country. At that time, during the Buddha's time, 2 countries were prominent, Kosala and Magadha. And sometimes they went to war against each other. So, Kosala had only one king, and that was Pasenadi, Raja Pasenadi. He was the same age as the Buddha. And then some people say, if the Buddha's father was not the king, at least he was the chief of the Sakyans. That also is wrong. The chief of the Sakyans was a man called Bhadia. And he was a very good friend of Anuruddha, Arahant disciple of the Buddha. So, when Anuruddha decided to renounce, he went to he asked his parents' permission, and his parents loved him so much, they did not want to give him permission, and he kept begging his parents for permission to renounce. So his parents thought his best friend is Badia, the chief of the Sakyans. So they gave him a condition. If your good friend Badia will renounce, we will also let you renounce. So he went to ask his friend Badia to renounce. His friend said, I don't want to renounce. I'm happy as I am, being the chief of the Sakyans. So he kept persuading his friend. He said, if you don't renounce, I cannot renounce. My parents put this condition for me. So he's being his very good friend. His friend said, you give me 7 years to think about it. After 7 years, then I will renounce. Then he said, 7 years is too long to wait for you. So his friend said, 6 years. 5 years, 4 years, until finally 1 week. So he said, okay, 1 week is not too long to wait. So after 1 week, he put his everything in order in his family. Then Badia went to renounce with Anuruddha. And then a few of these royal family princes, they renounced together. And actually Badia had such good karma, he was the chief of the Sakyans, that he was the first to become an Arahant. So after he became an Arahant, he was so happy, going around Sukha. So people started to think, why is this Badia saying Sukha? Last time he was the chief of the Sakyans, he had so much Sukha. Now he must be thinking of all the Sukha he left behind. What's there? It's complaining is Sukha. So they went to complain to the Buddha. So the Buddha called him and asked him to explain. So he explained. He said, formerly when I was the chief of the Sakyans, my life was always in danger. So I had bodyguards around me all the time. During the day, everywhere I went, my bodyguards followed me. At night also, my palace was surrounded by bodyguards. In spite of all that, I lived in constant fear for my life. But now, I have no more this fear. He was hinting that he was an Arahant, no more self. He said, I go anywhere, I'm not afraid. So the Buddha confirmed that he had become an Arahant. So you see from here, some of these things you won't know unless you read the Vinaya books. So Badia was a chief of the Sakyans. And the other point was, when the Buddha decided to renounce, he did not steal away from his family in the middle of the night. Actually, in the Majjhima Nikaya, it is stated, in broad daylight, he decided to walk away from the house. He put on yellow robes, cut off his hair, and his parents pleaded with him and cried and pleaded with him. In spite of his parents pleading with him, he left in full view of them, walked out of the house. Why? Because if you study the suttas, he had to go this way. In the Gatikara Sutta, in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha said that he only actually met only one Buddha. Later books said that he met 24 Buddhas, that he made a vow to become a Buddha and all that. All that is rubbish. In the suttas, he only met one Buddha, and that was Buddha Kassapa. And when he met Buddha Kassapa, at that time he was a Brahmin. And being a Brahmin, he had no faith in the Buddha Kassapa. But his best friend was an Anagamin, disciple of the Buddha, even though he was a lay person, the pot maker, Bhattikara. And his friend asked him many times to go and see the Buddha. He was not interested. He said, why go and see a shaveling monk? So his friend had to pull him, he pulled back until his friend pulled him by the hair. You know, at that time he was a Brahmin, high caste, and his friend was a pot maker, Pariya, low caste. You cannot pull a high caste man by the hair, you know, you can get killed for it. So his friend, this Brahmin, our Bodhisattva, he was shocked. He asked his friend, is it that important? I mean, what he meant was, is it so important you dare to pull my hair? His friend said, yes. He said, okay, you let go of my hair, I'll go and see your teacher. So they both went to see the Buddha Kassapa. So his friend Gatikara paid deep respect to the Buddha and sat down. But our Bodhisattva, he just said, hello, and sat down. So then the Bodhisattva, this Gatikara, he told the Buddha Kassapa, he said, Bhagava, this is my good friend, Jyotipala. He is a Brahmin. Please teach him some Dhamma. Then out of compassion, the Buddha Kassapa taught him the Dhamma. Usually for newcomers, the Buddha will teach a graduated discourse, which I have tried to imitate in the book called The Message of the Buddha, culminating in the Four Noble Truths. Just by hearing that discourse, he made a 180 degrees turn. He had complete faith in the Buddha, and within a few days, he renounced, became a monk. And during that lifetime under the Buddha Kassapa, he must have attained at least the first jhana. Why? Because after that lifetime, he went to the Tusita heavens. And then he came back in his last lifetime. As a young boy, 10 years old, he could enter the first jhana under the jambu tree when his father was overseeing the plowing. Yeah? You all know that story, isn't it? That is in the Vinaya books. So that confirms that he had attained the first jhana, at least under the Buddha Kassapa. Now some people like to say, oh, you attain jhana, you'll go to the Brahma heavens, you'll go to the form realm. It's very obvious here, you don't go. You only go if you constantly, every day, absorb yourself in the jhana. Every day you absorb yourself in the jhana, then you are reborn in the jhana plane. But if you don't absorb yourself every day in the jhana, you don't get reborn in the jhana plane, and you go to the sensual realm. From there he came back. So the real Bodhisattva, in the suttas, the earliest discourses, if you investigate carefully, the Buddha used this word Bodhisattva only for the last 3 lifetimes. When he was a disciple of the Buddha Kassapa, then when he went to the Tusita heaven, and then when he came back for his last birth. So actually, what is a Bodhisattva? A Bodhisattva is an Arya. A Bodhisattva is an Arya. If a person is not a Bodhisattva, he's not an Arya. If he's not an Arya, he's not a Bodhisattva. But nowadays they distort the fact and say that the Jataka stories, our Bodhisattva in his past life, he was a deer, he was a rabbit, and all that is rubbish. Those Jatakas are stories only. And you believe those stories? A lot of people believe. Why? Because they never have yoniso manasikara. They don't think about it. If you think about it, can animals talk or not? In the Jataka stories, the animals talk. Yeah? Animals behave better than human beings. The story of the rabbit, they say that in the previous life, our Bodhisattva was a rabbit. Then he saw the hunter go to the forest and hunt. Whole day he could not get any animal. Then at night he was very hungry. He was cooking his pot, supposed to cook meat, but he had no meat, so he was boiling water. And out of compassion for him, this rabbit jumped into the pot, sacrificed his life for the hunter so that he could fill his stomach. Any logic? If the rabbit are so smart, it won't be born as a rabbit, isn't it? Even stories like the Vesantara Jataka, where they say to perfect his parami, the Buddha in his previous life, gave away his wife and his children to the poor beggar, but the merciless beggar. After giving the wife and the children to the beggar will beat them. Any logic or not? I dare say it's rubbish. Why? Because it contradicts the Dhamma. If you study the Dhamma, the Buddha's Discourses, the Buddha said, a good man's offering, a good man's charity does not harm himself and does not harm others. Just as you cannot go and slaughter a chicken and offer to a monk, you also cannot offer your wife and children to a merciless beggar who will beat them. Yes or not? So it just simply contradicts the Buddha's Dhamma. In the same way, that story about the Jataka story about our Buddha in his previous life, he saw the hungry tiger, so hungry, had no milk to give the cubs. So the Buddha in his past life committed suicide, jumped down from the hill, killed himself to offer the tiger. That is another stupid story, because if he kills himself for the tiger having tasted human flesh, tomorrow will look for some more human flesh to eat. And besides, he will cause his parents to a lot of suffering, or his wife and children a lot of suffering. So all these Jataka stories are no different from Andersen's tales or Grimm's fairy tales. But of course, when we are simple-minded, when we are young, we listen to fairy tales and they live happily ever after. And we are so happy. So nice, they live happily ever after. But there's no such thing. So this is one of these those things that we have been taught to believe. There are many other things in the Dhamma that go against the actual Buddha's teachings. So now the Dhamma is very polluted. You have to be very, very careful. You don't have to believe what I say. You can study yourself. But if you want a shortcut, then you can listen to my Dhamma talks, which I've given to Brother Gore. English and Hokkien. 4 MP3s of English and 4 MP3s of Hokkien. All my Dhamma talks since 1988. Most, not all, most of them are there. And I've tried to expose some of the wrong teachings. Why? Because I wasted many years. So, this is compassion. Some people think I want to talk bad about other teachings. It's not that I want to talk bad. If I know the Dhamma, I should teach what is true Dhamma, what is wrong Dhamma.